I am still curious how you think you got it. Like it sounds like
so I think it was that mask.
Either wore your mask or
I think I wore somebody's mask.
Oh, really?
I think I wore someone else's mask. Okay, so here, this is my thought, and this is what happens with these people that get it that are asymptomatic, because I think there was like no harm or foul. So I keep a pack of 50 masks in my truck all the time because I'm in and out of places, and sometimes I'll pull up someplace. I can't tell you how many places I pull up to. Talking about my sister saying how safe I am with it. I'll pull up to places and I put on my mask, and somebody be like, "Oh, I don't have a mask. I'll just stay 6 feet away." And I'm like, "I have a mask," and I'll like hand them a mask out of my truck and be like, "Put the fucking mask on because I can't afford to be sick," I have a lot of friends that think that's the dumbest thing ever because they think it's dumb I wear a mask. But whatever, that's just opinions. That's their opinion. That's my opinion. So I think this is my theory, but I can't prove it. So it's important for me to say this. This is a theory. And honestly, this is after days of my sister and I trying to like contact trace. So it's important to know we contact trace at Langton Group. Okay. And we've taken steps so far as we made like where we have Chris, actually, I should show you this one day. And Vicky, you'd be even intrigued. So we have an 86 truck fleet. Okay. So imagine 86 keys hanging up for your employees. And we decided, okay, we can't be having people coming into the shop because everybody touching doorknobs and stuff. So before like a snow event right now, we carry, it looks like a suitcase of keys, and it gets clipped onto a board that has lights on it so that the people never have to come inside, and it's plexiglass, and we open it and we disinfect. I mean, it's crazy. The precautions we're taking to keep my people safe. So we also contact trace. Like Megan's whole job is if one of our employees gets COVID, figure out who they were around, who they were with, who they think they got it from, to see if it was one of our employees or right. So we have all this in place at Langton Group. So when I got COVID, of course, everybody's like, "Well, who were you with that day? Did one of our employees give it to you?" So me, Julie, and Stefan go to a large customer, a potential client of ours in Michigan. No, we contact trace that, nothing's there. Then I have a meeting on Tuesday with a very large customer of mine. I end up getting sick. Instantly, my office sends them an email. Do you have anybody that's sick? The irony is that this is the only one weird spot. We both seem to get it the same day. Okay. So both one of the people that was in the meeting and myself, say Friday night, Saturday, running fever, symptomatic. So then it's like, the chicken or the egg. Did they get it from me or did I get it from them? Okay. And then the truck comes back to me on a Wednesday. The only thing that makes sense to me is that because it's, you have to understand, like, not only do I wear a mask, I have hand sanitizer in my truck. So if I go to a gas station, I sanitize my hands. If I walk into a building, when I get back out to my truck, I sanitize my hands. To the point where, by the way, I think I'm going to need a new steering wheel because that shit like eats your steering wheel. I mean, like, but anyways, so
I think that's going to be another COVID long-term side effect, right? Instead of being on humans, people are going to need steering wheels replaced and stuff like that from all the hand gel.
I was thinking like I'm going to look up all the companies that make steering wheels because I'm sure nobody makes a steering wheel anymore. They outsource it, and I'm going to buy some stock in it because this is like an insider tip. Like people are going to have to replace their steering wheels. But anyways, so. That's it. I mean, Chris, that's like what I think it is because, that company that does our service, it's like young porters, and I could totally see them being asymptomatic, not even feeling like they're sick. They drive my truck back. They get in the truck. They need a mask. There's a mask sitting right there in a box. They take the mask out. They wear the mask on the drive back because like these guys always pull up with masks on because the service center probably tells them you're in somebody's truck, just wear a mask. Like that's, so, and then I could totally see him like pulling into our yard, figuring out where he's supposed to park it, taking his mask off. And chances are probably putting one of my old masks on because I always leave a mask on my dash, and then me getting in the truck and taking his. It's the one thing that makes most logical sense. The reason I say it's a theory is nobody seemed to want to like, that was one of those weird scenarios where the relationship there is so good. Nobody wanted to call and be like, did one of your porters have COVID because Joe has COVID? And we think, cause then it's like, then it'd be like, I got an idea. We're not going to drive your trucks back and forth anymore. You know what I'm saying? So then then I was like, well, I have it. So screw it. So that's why it's like a theory. And the only thing is the timeline kind of works out because, you know, that was Wednesday. I was sick Friday. Cameron and I were together. He was sick Sunday. His wife, Roxanne, was sick Sunday. So it's like, it almost seems like the strain we had or whatever with the way COVID was hitting us, if I was around somebody 2.5 days later, they were sick. So then I look at it like whatever happened Wednesday is like how somebody got sick. And I can't contact trace any place I was Wednesday except for that mask. That's why my theory is my theory, Chris. And because it smelled like cherries. Like,
yeah,
you know, so.
I mean, and that would explain like a really large viral load as well, right?
Yeah. Did you ever figure out, Vic? Remember, I asked you if you guys smell cherry when you're around people.
So this is something that's just totally non-medical at all. Just me and Joe having a conversation. But Joe kept saying he smelled cherries the whole time he was sick. He'd be like, "My room smells like cherries. My room smells like cherries." Now, something that I think is funny about this is that, you know, obviously when I'm taking care of COVID patients, I'm in a room and we have an N95, and I always feel like these N95s smell like Smarties, which could kind of be like fruity cherry, right? So we kind of are like, we almost wonder if COVID smells a little like cherries. And maybe that's what I'm smelling in my N95 and not necessarily the N95. But that's just something Joe picked up on, that he felt like when he was sick, it smelled like cherries.
Well,
and that's why he's saying this mask smelled like cherries, like almost like whoever had the mask on had COVID. He smelled it, but didn't even know what he was smelling. It was like, whatever. And, you know,
yeah, because it's like ingrained in my brain now.
Certain things smell like certain things, right? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, like it could be, you know, it could be that it kind of has like a cherry or like a fruity smell. I mean, that's definitely possible.
Yeah. So, I mean, Julia's room smelled like it when I would walk into her room. My room definitely smelled like it. Like if I walked out of my room, Chris, okay, like, because see, one of the things that we realized that I kind of had my doctor kind of put me like back in quarantine was, you know, so the CDC calls me and says, your quarantine's over. You can come out of your room. So I did come out of my room because, you know, in my fever, I didn't have fever for 72 hours, whatever. But I'm still coughing really bad. My lungs hurt, you know, and my doctor at this point is like calling to check up on me. And he calls and, you know, he sees that I'm sitting out in the kitchen and I'm not up in my room. And he's like, why are you out of quarantine? I'm like, because they said I'm done. And he's like, you're still symptomatic. You're not done in quarantine. Go get back in your room. And, you know, but what I noticed was in that time, like if I'd walk out of there and like go into the kitchen, then I'd come out of the kitchen, go back out to my room, and it smelled. So what I said, it smelled like if you make cherry Kool-Aid in the powder, doesn't smell like the Kool-Aid, it smells like the powder, and with a little apple. Like, so it's like cherry with a little apple. Now, this is coming from the guy that if you and I ever go on a road trip together, I will smell a dead raccoon a mile away. You'll be like, I don't smell anything. And then all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, there's 2 dead raccoons there. Like, that's the way that it is. I went on a vacation. We were in Costa Rica and I'm sitting there and there was a big earthquake, by the way. That could be a whole nother podcast, but it wouldn't be related to this. But anyways, I smell sulfur. And I keep telling people, like, I smell sulfur. And everybody's like, they're kind of being assholes. Like, oh, did you fart? Ha ha. And I'm like, no, it smelled like sulfur. Well, turns out there was a volcano on the other side of the mountain that erupted. There were 6 inches of ash. I'm the only person in this wedding party that keeps saying, I smell sulfur. Everybody else, like, I don't smell anything. So that's the way my nose is. Like and my sister knows this. I mean, my sister and I are very close. Like I can smell things that just other people can't. I mean, I walked in my house yesterday and I'm like, it smells like shit in here. And everybody's like, what's the problem? And I walked down to my basement in the ejection pit for my son's bathroom downstairs was backed up and not working. But I'm the only person in the house. I literally sniffed it out like a bloodhound. I was like, walked around. I'm like, it's not up here. Walked down the stairs. I was like, oh, there it is. So anyways, so I think this is why I
Joe,
think I'm on something with the
maybe they were all just saving it for you.
Well,
It's the oldest trick in the book.
$875 later, Vic, you'd be proud of me. I opened up. So my house is 3 levels, but there's a crawl space. So it's really like my house is 3.5 stories. And I opened up the hatch for the crawl space and I saw the sewage, and I thought, there is no effing way, after I know my white blood cells are shit, that I'm climbing in that. I'm calling somebody. And it's the first time in my life. I mean, because I've replaced ejection pits and hot water heaters. I was like, all right, I'm just going to pay somebody. And even though, I would have actually probably paid them. I mean, they charged me $875. I would have paid them $8,075 after I opened up that hatch and saw what was down there. But they did it, So
some things are definitely well worth the money.
Oh my God. Then the irony was, I asked them how much for a hot water heater, and they said $1,500. And I was like, holy shit. See, the hot water heater, I don't really understand for $1,500, but you could have told me $1,500 for the pile of shit that you had to climb in to get the pump out. It was money well spent, So, but anyways.
Joe, I think you might be part Wolverine, part Logan.
So I know we've actually said that. Sometimes my nails grow so fast, I think I am too. My fiance is always like, why? Because she's always like doing like press on nails and stuff. She's like, if my nails could grow like yours, seriously, my nails. I don't know about you guys. This is the weirdest, most abstract thing we're off on. Maybe you'll edit this out too, or maybe you'll leave it as a blooper. But I literally have to like cut my fingernails like every 4 days. That's how fast my fingernails grow. It's crazy.
It's because you're well nourished. Gretchen needs to eat a little more like you, not just those quesadillas with hot sauce.
Well, my waistline shows how well nourished I am too.
Yeah, me too.
So maybe I need to be less nourished. So maybe this is what I need as an indicator. Like, how often should one cut their nails? And then once I get my nails to that, I'll just be a healthy weight. That's maybe what I need.
And you'll know.
That'll be
you
my
won't be checking your weight. It'll be by nail.
I won't use a scale anymore. I'll go off how fast my fingernails grow.
Yeah.
So,
Victoria, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So my kind of meddling on Google, like Joe, it seems the one through line I've found is that like low vitamin D kind of denotes like a more severe response to COVID. Have you noticed anything like that or any other?
So that was it was an early study that was actually published by Northwestern. And they are definitely saying vitamin D. And actually, when Joe told me he was sick, I was like, you need vitamin C and vitamin D, because they do say that if you have low levels of vitamin D, it is like they want to say almost like a predictor that you're going to have COVID worse. So I'm not sure why it makes it worse. I almost wonder if it's just the way it like binds to your cells or something. But actually, vitamin D is linked to a lot of things. Low levels of vitamin D makes you more at risk for different cancers and things like that too. So, but yeah, that definitely is something that's out there, and I think getting more and more well known.
What about zinc too? Didn't you?
Yeah. So zinc. Now I haven't gone and fact searched this myself too, but one of my friends was telling me that the zinc actually helps kind of with that crown that I was talking about on the virus, because it doesn't let it like bind as well. So like they say, like, to take like vitamin C, zinc, and then I like the vitamin D. So I know I wasn't that like big on the zinc because I wasn't that like well versed in it, but I know, your doctor had told you should be on zinc.
So my doctor told me to start taking zinc. And I will say, in the beginning, I only took C and D because we had that in the house. And being quarantined, having me, Gretchen, and Julia get it, nobody, I think it's not one of the boys, but that, I did it. But what ended up happening was my neighbor went and bought me the zinc and was like, stop being dumb, take the zinc. And within like 4 days, I mean, seriously, he was like, why are you so effing stubborn? Like, the doctor told you to take zinc. Your sister, just go buy zinc. And I'm like, I'm almost over it now anyway. So maybe this is why I was sick so long too.
Oh yeah, that does go to show. It goes back to that original where you say you never go to the doctor. It's because you're stubborn. Because it's the same thing too. All the texts. I mean, if we go back through our text chain, I mean, how many days were you like, I think I'm coming out of this? I mean, there were a lot, because you always thought you were going to get better. So I think then that is why you were like, I don't need the zinc. I'm going to get better. But you didn't get better as fast as you thought or hoped.
I mean, it's important to know part of my success is because I just don't lose. And I am not used to losing. Like even if it looks like I'm losing one day, I like literally figure out how I come back the next day and like rock that. And I just like take care of it. So yeah, illness for me is bad because I'm always in my mind. One of the things that's funny is I would every night before I'd go to bed, I would like give my immune system a pep talk. I would be like, all right, immune system. Like this is seriously, this is like this is like an internal monologue of me before I go to bed every night. When I was spiking this fever, I'd be like, all right, immune system, I'm going to sleep. When I wake up tomorrow morning, you'd better have taken care of this shit. Okay. Like, and I would just keep on thinking this thought. Okay. This is what I do when I get sick because I'm like, I don't know, isn't that like Buddhist or something? I'm not that religion, but I feel like I'm like that mind over matter person where I'm like, I'm going to will it. I'm going to make this happen. And I think it's one of the things that made COVID worse because I wake up the next morning and be like, I fucking lost again. Like what is happening? Get it together. I was so pissed off, So
You're giving your immune system some tough love there.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, if I had to give my immune system a grade, I give it a D minus. I mean, it got
nah. You're still here. You didn't end up in the hospital. You didn't end up on an event. You gotta be a little bit better than a D minus.
I don't know. I felt like it was kind of a piss poor for performance but I guess.
Well, Dave always says, my husband, but Dave always says C's get degrees. So maybe it was just a C. You just got your degree.
All right, I'll give it a C. I mean, I was a C student. That's one of the things I always laugh at is, A students teach, B students work for C students, and that's something that I'm a firm believer of because I think I've got a ton of B students. They're all the people that kept Langton going while I was sick as hell, But so what that means is I need my immune system to at least be a B on the next round.
Victoria, so just out of curiosity, like, if two people show up the same day with kind of similar symptoms, similar body types, do you notice that like if one does one thing, then they do better, or if one has kind of pre-existing anything? Like, is there
some pre-existing will kind of like mess with people, but I think one of the scariest things about COVID for like me, I mean, like I just turned 40, so fairly young still, but is that it's just so like right smack in your face. It doesn't matter age, it does kind of matter race. We are seeing that African Americans and Hispanics get hit harder for whatever reason. So maybe genetics, something like that. But there are some things you could do. Like what I told Joe right away to do was, keep hydrated, keep moving, because so anytime you might have pneumonia, like even if it's like a post-surgical, like you want to always make sure your lungs are expanding. So moving is good for you. Also with clots, moving is good for you because the more you lay around, you're likely to get a blood clot in your leg that then could travel. So I think like if you get COVID, start taking your vitamins. So zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C. Always make sure you're kind of just like staying hydrated because the fever is going to dehydrate you. It makes your heart rate go up and increases your metabolic rate. So you're kind of like losing. And then, think about it, you get sweaty. That's like a fluid loss. We tell people to lay on their stomach. I don't think Joe did this because he said it was uncomfortable, but when you lay on your stomach, you're letting your lungs expand better. Even people on ventilators, we're doing that. It's called proning. And then I just think even though you feel miserable, like move. So if it means you're walking around your room every once in a while, do it because it's going to help so you don't get that blood clot and so that you just are kind of up in a different position and your lungs are just able to expand.
So I did roll over to my stomach every now and then because I knew what you told me. Unfortunately, for me, when I lay on my stomach, it hurts my lower back. And when you have COVID, everything that hurts a little bit when you're healthy hurts really bad when you're not. So yeah, that was kind of hard for me, but I did try to do it. I did walk around, like you said, which that had me like trying to invent a bodysuit that you could like be suspended in, and the suit would exercise you because that's how weak I was. So then this kind of shows like the way my mind works, Chris, is I'm laying in bed thinking, oh my God, Vicky wants me to walk around and do all this shit. I'm too weak, but maybe what I need to do is figure out how to invent a suit, and we'll call it the COVID suit. And when people come in, instead of laying them in a bed, they put them in this like suspended suit that like pulsates and like works your legs so your blood flows and keeps you at a perfect internal temperature so that if you spike a fever, it actually, you don't need to take any ibuprofen. I mean, I'm laying there trying to think of all this stuff.
So there are some equipment that does those things. There's compression devices that go on your legs, and there's different cooling blankets. Unfortunately, they're.
I know, but you're all laying down. So the way my brain worked is any sci-fi movie you ever watch. You know, I was watching Independence Day the other day, and I was like, see, this is exactly what I was saying. You know, the dead aliens are floating in like this viscous fluid in this like glass case. And I'm like, see, why don't we have something like gel like that? And you modulate the temperature, and the only thing sticking out is your head. And that's it. It's like an aloe vera, like gel, and it's like perfect temperature, and you're sitting up. Anyways.
Isn't that what they did to Luke Skywalker when they found him in the snow?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Every sci-fi movie, like everybody's had this freaking idea. Nobody's made the damn suit. Where is the chamber? That's what I want to know. Who is going to do it? Somebody step up with me. Give me some money for R&D and let's make one, you know? And with all this virtual reality stuff going on right now, the sky's the limit. I mean, you can sell these things in medical. Boy, oh boy, people would never leave their house, you know? And that's why we'd call it the COVID suit, you know? Make quarantine better. So.
Less lonely, virtual friends.
Yeah, exactly. So,
cool. Well, Joe, one last question for you. So they said your lungs are still feeling rough. What is there some sort of protocol for like getting your lungs back into shape or what?
Yeah. So, I mean, all they did was gave me, I mean, here's my inhaler sitting right here. I mean, they gave me, supposed to be taking the inhaler, which I should have probably taken it when I started coughing a while ago. They didn't really give me like a protocol. What they've just been telling me is to expect like the pain from when they did the x-ray. I think my last x-ray was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. But they told me it'd probably be 2 months of still having lung pain. And then, but they told me they wanted me to come back in a month to check on it again and see like how my lung healed. So there was really no protocol. One of the things that I've been trying to do is just slowly become active again. So I like rework my lungs because I mean, that's the thing. And Vicky, maybe you comment a little bit on this. So I've never had pneumonia before. And I mean, you'll get out of breath to go get the mail. I mean, it's like crazy. Like I can sit here and feel fine. And then I start to do anything strenuous and I'll run out of breath. I put my plow on my truck the other day and my brother was like, easy, big dog. Cause I was like, you would have thought I ran 1.5 miles, you know, I just, right. I mean, that's like, right, Vic. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
it's like
so
you
actually,
function and then you push it and then you can't breathe.
Yeah. I could speak from personal experience on this because I had pneumonia after a C-section. They were saying it was like, like almost like a hospital acquired after surgery. And it was pretty bad, but they didn't admit me. They gave me like IV dose of meds and then sent me home because I had a newborn. But that was, my son is.
Victoria, last question for you. You know, during this whole experience, like how worried were you about Joe?
I mean, I was pretty worried. I checked in on him every day. You know, I felt, I never really felt like he was going to die, but I think I like knew how sick he could possibly get. Mm-hmm. And if he got sicker, like, would he make it over that like threshold and would he be okay? You know? So, I mean, I definitely was worried about him, you know? But I'm glad it turned around and worked out as it did. And he didn't even get admitted and stuff like that. But, I mean, yeah, there were some days there that, you know, I was nervous how it was going to be. Like I said, we always see people that just are okay. And then they're not. And that was kind of that morning that I told him to go to the emergency room. That's what I was worried was going to start to happen. His oxygen levels were lower. He felt like crap. He couldn't take a deep breath. And I was worried we were going to hit that point where he just was not going to be able to catch his breath and he was going to be in a bad way. So I think especially at that point, I was pretty worried about him.
Well, plus that one day, remember my heart rate was like 45 or something. You were all,
his heart was kind of doing some weird things. He was explaining like almost like he was having these thumps, which I imagine are some sort of like palpitations. And then his heart rate would sometimes be fast. But like you could kind of expect that when somebody had a fever and stuff like that. But then he would kind of go extreme. He'd be like in the 40s sometimes and then be like back fast again. So I think his heart was definitely doing some weird things too, which I'm going to reiterate. You still have to call your doctor and get more testing done on that. Cause I mean, the long-term effects of COVID are real, and I will be curious, just, like they are showing things are happening with the heart. So it's like, I want to just make sure that your heart's okay after COVID. So got to listen to me on that. I'll keep writing you.
Yeah. To elaborate on what she said is, and I've been telling my doctor this every time I call, and it's actually been bothering me because it keeps getting like it's almost like dismissed every time I bring it up. And this has never happened to me before. So I got COVID a few days into COVID. Remember I called you, and what would happen is my heart, it's like beats normal, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. And then all of a sudden it goes, whoop. We lost Vicky again. It's just like this one like crazy beat. So it kind of felt like my chest was hollow. So then Vicky was like, well, take your pulse and see if you feel it in your vein. Well, then I would feel my vein go like with my heart. So, and it got to the point where it's predictable, almost like 4 to 6 times a minute, my heart would do that like, boom. Like, and what I have found, Vicky, is it does it more when I lay down. So if I'm laying on my back, it does it. If I'm sitting upright, it does not. So then I'm telling my doctor, and they're like, yeah, it's kind of normal. You're dehydrated and you have pneumonia, and your heart's doing whatever it takes to get your oxygen. Mm-hmm. But then what started to happen was I'd have that pulse ox reader, which, by the way, when you have bad COVID, the pulse ox reader beeps at 93. And it is kind of scary because Vicky said she was never worried I was going to die. For 2 days, I was worried I was kicking the can, like we were done, because you put on the pulse ox reader and it's like beep, beep. I mean, the thing's not even on your finger for 3 seconds. It's already beeping. You're like, holy fuck, So, it's like 90, 92, and it's like, okay, I know. What did you say the threshold is that before they put you on oxygen?
Well, so in normal worlds, like 92, you want to be 92 or higher. COVID, we let people go sometimes in the upper 80s, depending on how they're feeling. So COVID's just a little bit different, but, there are some people that are in the 50s when they walk into the ER and they have COVID. But I recommend a little home pulse ox if you do get sick, because then you kind of know. Like, that was actually something that I think made me less scared for Joe, because I knew what his stats were. So even when he was telling me I can't breathe, my lungs hurt, I was like, yeah, but your stats are okay. So like, you were still oxygenating, So I know 93 was the day that I was like, I think you need to go to the ER, but I still was like, oh, you're okay still, like, yeah. You're still okay with COVID in 93.
Yeah. So, but one day I do the pulse ox, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Vic, but I'm like, it's like 95. But my heart rate's 45, and I read it to my sister, and she's like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, 95, 45. And she's like, I think we lost her again. But anyways, she's like, yeah, that's not good. Your heart rate should not be at 45 right now. You have COVID, you have pneumonia. If anything, your heart would be pumping faster. So then she puts the fear of God in me about that. But the irony was, she gave me great medical advice. She's like, listen, you can do something that my patients normally can't do. Get up and walk around and get your heart rate up. So there was like a couple of days where that's what we did together, where it's like I would call her and it'd be low, and then I would get up and just walk around, but it would respond like instantly. So it's almost like my heart was just tired. Like this way, this is not medical. It's just my thoughts. And it'd just be like, all right, I'm taking a break. Like that's how it felt to me, But so anyways, that was that,
Yeah.
So, and it still does it. So it's still doing it right now. I mean, it hasn't done it for this whole podcast, but it still does it if I lay on my back.
So. Yeah. Well, I think I speak for myself and the audience when, we want to also encourage you to get that checked out.
Yeah.
Hate to lose you at this point, especially, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know it's hard, because you start to kind of feel like, I don't know. It's like when she tells me to do that or whatever, it's like, I mean, I'm a stubborn person, but I'm also like not like a hypochondriac. And it's important for people to know that as I'm talking about my experience. Like I'm somebody that'll pick food up off the ground and eat it. It's like whatever.
Strengthens your immune system.
Exactly. I mean, some people say 3-second rule. I've got like a 10-second rule, and if it's like something really good, I'm just eating it anyways. But But yeah, so it's hard for me to go to the doctor because I almost feel like now, I don't know. It's weird. I feel like maybe it's time I maybe just get a different doctor, because when I call and talk about it, it's like I get this feeling like they almost are thinking I'm like a hypochondriac, or it's like, yeah, you had COVID, you're going to have effects for a while, get used to it, So I've got my sister on one end being like, yeah, you could have a clot inside your heart and they'll just sit in there, and that's why your heart will do like weird stuff.
What?
Yeah, that's why that's the test she wants me to get. She wants them to do echo of my heart, because see, when I go in and they do all that stuff, they like scanned to see if I had clots in my lung and my artery, and checking my legs and stuff like that. But when she looked at my reports, she was like, they've never done an echo of your heart. Like, make them do an echo of your heart, because they did EKGs, had me on the things, to obviously check rhythm. And what was weird was that would show on, like, that weird rhythm would show. They even said when I was in the ER, like, are you feeling like a heart, like, palpitation? And I said, yeah. And they're like, okay, but anyway, so yeah, so I do need to listen to my sister and go get the test, I suppose. So
You do. I'm back on, and yes, you do.
yeah. So yeah, cool. I mean, so I don't know. I got any other questions, Chris? Or
yeah, I think that's everything. What are your kind of parting thoughts for folks who think this isn't a big deal, or think this is too big of a deal, or what's your your review?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Parting thoughts.
So here's my parting thoughts. For those that don't think it's a big deal, I don't fault you for thinking it, because I didn't really think it was a big deal until it was a big deal, right? I think I've been telling people that if I had to give an analogy to COVID's kind of like a heart attack, so it's like everybody gets nervous. They might have a heart attack one day. And doctors tell people to eat better and exercise more and don't have cholesterol or don't eat sugar. And people are always like, yeah, but I'm good and I'm fine and I'm not going to get sick, right? Like that, I feel like if I had to compare anything to me, like that's me, right? Because I'm 275 pounds and I should probably be 240, So I'm that person. Like, I could die of a heart attack one day. I have stress, this and that, but I push it aside. I feel like that's COVID. But once you get it, once you have it, it's like you've had that massive heart attack that you survived. So once you have it, you eat healthier and you do listen to your doctor. The problem is it was like almost too little too late, because now your heart is scarred. You've already had a heart attack. All the insurance companies know you've had a heart attack. So now you got pre-existing shit with that. Life insurance companies know you've had a heart attack. So I think the problem, like, my advice or my opinion is, we look at COVID for its face value, okay? Which is, I think, the mistake the majority of us make. It's, if I get COVID, how sick am I going to get and when will I be better? That's how I would have thought of it. Now I think of it as, is my lung function going to be right again? Now I think of it as, and I know how I felt when I had COVID. How many other people did I get sick? Okay. Did I just get one of my best friends so sick that he might not be able to get his heart surgery that he needed, which, by the way, he did get successful. He's good now, okay, after COVID. These are all the things that I just want people to take into consideration with COVID. And I'm not telling anybody that you shouldn't live your life, because I got it living my life and I'm going to continue to live my life. I just want people to know that, the whole making fun of people that are wearing masks inside a vehicle, I would feel like I let that, like, I couldn't care less if somebody said that before I had COVID. Now it offends me when I hear people say, you're a sheep if you get a vaccine. Before I had COVID, I would have been like, yeah, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Now it pisses me off because now I don't want to get COVID again in 4 months. Because if I get COVID again in 4 months, like I got it now, maybe I am done. Like, because now, like I said, COVID is my pre-existing condition, So my advice to anybody would be, think of all the people around you. Think of all the life you think at this moment when you listen to this podcast that you have to live, and realize that the time it takes you to put on a mask or the time it takes you to wash your hands is a really small price to pay. And the other thing that I want to say is when I was in the ER, there was probably 5 or 6 different nurses that had to come in that room. And I couldn't imagine why any of them would come in that room. I knew I was sick. They knew I had COVID. Okay. If I knew you had COVID right now, Chris, I'd be like, see you later, buddy. We're good. Right. And these people, like my sister, they come into that room. All those people have family, friends, and kids, and they walk in to treat you. And in the ER, they're walking in with the same freaking masks we wear every day. And one of the things that I'll remember was I said to the nurse that was there, she was a pretty young woman. And I said, and I coughed, and I like turned my head, and I like to cough away from her. And she appreciated that, and I was like, I don't even know why you're in this room, because I feel like I'm like a walking plague right now. And she's like, well, first of all, I've already had it. I did have COVID. It was terrible. I got it pretty bad. She was like, but if I don't walk into the room, who's going to walk in? Okay. That's something else I want people to understand about COVID is when you get it, like I got it, and you have to go to the hospital, everybody assumes that all of these medical professionals are just going to keep walking into the room. Okay. But what happens if some of these medical professionals that had it get it again and they die from it? Okay. Now, fortunately, we have the vaccines now for them. Okay. But I just want people to be a little less selfish. That's what I want to say. Like, don't be selfish. Think about the greater good, and think about the fact that once we're through this, we're through it. It's just back to normal. And I am thankful for the vaccine. And one of the things that I heard with the vaccine too, that I think needs to be said out loud. Everybody questions how fast this vaccine was developed. And my sister, Vicky, actually helped me through this. This is one of the first vaccines that have been developed that the world developed. Okay. We are 7 billion people on this planet now, right? I think that's right. 7 billion we have. And what's crazy about this vaccine is it's one of the few times 7 billion people are all fighting for the same end cause. No more COVID. Okay. It doesn't make a difference what side of politics you're on. If COVID goes away, business is open, we're working, you can party again, you can do whatever you want. All these poor small restaurants and small businesses that are getting decimated, which I feel terrible for, it's all done. Okay. So let's just get it done. Let's be done. It's not going to be done forever. Like Vicky said, you can still get COVID, but we don't have to worry about a loved one dying. We don't have to worry about if Joe's going to be around anymore. We don't have to worry about Chris being around. There's still things that could take us, but it's one less thing that could take us. That's it. That's my closing thing. We could all die of something tomorrow, but maybe we can get it to a point where we don't have to worry about it being COVID that takes us. It's just one less thing. That's my thought process now with COVID.
Yeah. Love it. Amen.
All right. So
Well said.
So yeah, that's it. I think I don't want to over talk it at all. And I feel like I did on this one, but this meant to anybody that listened to the entire podcast for me, I appreciate it, because I appreciate every person that helped me through it. I appreciate every person that listened to how I felt about it. Because it was pretty messed up. It was very humbling. Made me realize that it doesn't make a difference how big and how strong you are, how young you are, how tough you are. COVID doesn't give a shit. All COVID is after are your cells. You are just a host for COVID, and it's going to do what it's going to do to you and there's nothing you're going to do about it. Right? I mean, that's it. Like,
Yep.
Once it takes hold, you can't will it away. You can't medicate it away. It's a virus. It's just going to be, does your immune system win or does COVID win? And that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to a living cell versus a living virus.
Yep.
And go. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
so
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing this. I mean, this was a adventure, man. It's a journey.
yeah, it was. Like I said, I've actually said having so many employees and so many people that I could affect, maybe maybe God gave me a bad case of it for a reason, and I survived it for a reason, so that I can, tell people like, hey, it's real. It was real bad. I think I said to you, Chris, I think I'm usually the guy that people call if they had to go to war. There was a backstreet brawl or a back alley brawl. I think I'd be probably high on the list. Be like, I'm going to call my buddy Joe. Right? I mean, Vicky knows that. I mean, I'm like the family protector. I mean,
Big Brother Joe. Even my
Yeah.
friends would call him that when we were young. Let's call
Yeah.
Big Brother Joe, they'd say.
yeah, but so I mean, Big Brother Joe didn't have shit on COVID.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so
That's serious. Well, thanks again for sharing, man. That really, I think opened my eyes, opened my mind, kind of scared me straight, I'd say.
yeah, and whatever it does, it's genuine, it's true. This was just my journey. People have had it much, much worse, I'm sure. There's a lot of things that people deal with in their life that's probably worse than my COVID experience, but to me, it was the worst thing I've ever dealt with.
Well, it sounds like 400,000 people have had it worse than you, and they died.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
Yeah. It's terrible to think about it. Actually, I know I said I was done, but one of the things that I said to Vicky was that when I had COVID, it actually made me feel bad for all those people, because I feel like the people. So before I had COVID, and I think it has nothing to do with my COVID, I think people still fall into this trap. They hear somebody died of COVID, and then they're like, oh, they must have had something else going on. What was their pre-existing condition? And I know that because it's happened to me. Some of the people that found out, so I made sure to not put it on my Facebook, but my fiance put it on hers. And then people that found out that I had it were messaging me saying, I didn't know you were that unhealthy. And it pissed me off. And it actually is like, the professional in me didn't get pissed and say like shitty stuff back. And I just gave them the facts of like, yeah, I don't have pre-existing conditions. One of the things that I told my sister saw it, my blood pressure was 122/80 while I was in the ER, and the ER doctor laughed a little bit and said, probably the reason you're not on the vent is you're in the ER, not able to breathe, and your blood pressure is 122/80. Right. So I am a healthy person. But when people say that, it's totally unfair. And I also think it's unfair to maybe, I don't know, Vicky, would you say half maybe of the 400,000 people at a minimum that have died of COVID that had no pre-existing condition? And then going even a little step further to that, what I realized having COVID was, diabetes is manageable now. In our medical world, you can be a diabetic and live a healthy life with management, right? They manage it. You can have high cholesterol and take a cholesterol medication and it's managed. So you can have all sorts of pre-existing things that you can live and survive through until you get COVID. So at the end of the day, I was one of those people. It's important to know. I can remember an argument I would have with my dad being like, yeah, Dad, people are dying of COVID, but they have pre-existing conditions. Okay. I was that asshole. I'll openly admit it. Like, sometimes you got to just step up and own your misconstrued thought. But then having it, and now I almost feel bad and guilty for ever having that thought. Because unfortunately, 400,000 people have died, and a lot of people in our world or country, that's just in our country, assume, yeah, well, they had something else going on. That's unfair, because that something else is not what took them. COVID accelerated it. So that's something else I want to say, and just say it very real and bluntly. No one's going to change my mind on that now. That is how I feel. So,
yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're on the other side of this, Joe. The world's a better place with you in it, my man.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Great.
And thank both of you guys for your time today and kind of rehearing re-walking down that road of recovery, I guess we'll call it, you know?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Get this trauma out of you.
yeah. Well, honestly, you know, this was like a free counseling session, you know, right? This is one of the reasons I've never had to see a psychologist or anything in my life, because I have people like you in my life I can just vent it all out to and be done with it, you know? So,
Yep.
And create some awesome content while you're doing it.
yeah, exactly. So no confidentiality agreements here, you know?
Nope.
So, all right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for being on the show. Vic, you know, I love you. You were my rock through the whole thing. Chris, you know how much I appreciate what you do for us on the podcast, and I'm glad the people that tune in got to hear you. I know Chris has his own podcast too, so he was kind of perfect to be on. Yeah, like I said, I appreciate everybody that supported me through it. Like I said, every employee I had, my daughter, I'm glad she's better. My fiance, everybody that I love that had it. I'm glad you all made it through with me, and you know, looking forward to getting the vaccine. So, so that's it.
Too. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Great job. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Victoria.
Oh, you're welcome.